I couldn't help but furrow my brow at the sight of men's and women's shoes near our front door when neither my husband nor I were home. It seemed odd, as our house should have been empty. But there was an undeniable presence, evidenced by the shoes and a rather raucous voice emanating from the bathroom. Now, typically, when spouses are out, it's not uncommon for one to invite over a secret lover. However, this scenario didn't quite add up. Could it be my husband entertaining someone while I stood there, baffled and apprehensive? Let me introduce myself. I'm Amelia, and I've been married to Michael for 2 years. We're what they call a dual income, no kids couple. Life has been pretty smooth sailing for us so far. We enjoy our time together, whether it's going out or exploring new places when we're off work. Luckily, our families aren't pressuring us about having children, which is a relief. In fact, they live nearby, and we have a great relationship, often gathering for family dinners. Our home, a slightly old but charming house, was recommended to us by our in-laws. We often host dinner parties, with my mom and I taking charge of the cooking while enjoying some of Dad's favorite wine and the dishes our in-laws bring over. However, on this particular day, something seemed off. My usually cheerful mom was acting a bit gloomy, expressing concerns about preparing too much food for the dinner party. It was unusual for her to be so hesitant. When I asked her about it, she seemed surprised, almost as if she had been caught off guard. Eventually, she confided in me that Dad had been acting strange lately, being overly critical and distant. It worried me to hear that, considering how much my mom does for our family. Despite the concerns, we carried on with our plans for the dinner party, including Dad's favorite steak and pie to show our support for his new business venture. Meanwhile, Michael, ever the neat freak, was busy making sure every corner of the house was spotless. As I was in the garden, tidying up the planters, my mother-in-law Sophia approached me with a solemn expression, handing me a box. Inside were premium steaks from a renowned restaurant, an unexpected but thoughtful gift. It turned out that we had unknowingly prepared the same dish for the dinner party. While it seemed like a simple coincidence, it also brought about a dilemma. Should we serve the gifted steaks, or stick to our original plan? Sophia suggested serving them, considering the occasion and our parents' preferences, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease about the situation. I found myself at a loss for words as everyone gathered was nearing their 50s. It felt wasteful to prepare such a feast, especially after Mom had lent a hand with the preparations. Sophia's comment stung, catching me off guard, as we had never coordinated on gifts before. Usually, when our gifts coincided, it ended up being a funny anecdote, but this time it felt different. At the dinner party, Dad seemed delighted with the steak from the fancy restaurant, and Mom seemed to understand my silent gesture of appreciation. After our guests left, Mom skillfully transformed the leftover ingredients into a delicious beef stew, salvaging what could have gone to waste. Despite the effort, Dad complained about the stew, calling it outdated, which left me seething with anger. However, I held on to those feelings, unable to confront them, especially with Mom offering nothing but a gentle smile. A few weeks later, I received an unexpected message from Michael, who was supposed to be away on a business trip. It turned out that the trip was canceled, and he would be coming home earlier than expected. Plans I had made to spend time at my parents' home had to be rearranged. As we headed home together, I noticed a light leaking from the entrance, despite being certain that we had turned everything off before leaving. Concerned about wasted electricity, I apologized, but Michael brushed it off. However, his demeanor shifted when he realized that the front door was unlocked upon our return. Panic set in as we feared a potential intruder. Quietly, I activated my phone to record, signaling Michael as we cautiously entered the house. The sight that greeted us was unsettling. There were unfamiliar shoes in the entryway, suggesting that someone else had been inside. With Michael by my side, we braced ourselves for a possible confrontation, his umbrella ready for defense. As we ventured further, We noticed the living room light on and food scattered on the table, an odd sight for a burglary. Then, we heard a voice emanating from the bathroom, its vulgar tones sending shivers down our spines. It was clear that someone was in our home, and the situation felt increasingly eerie. Michael and I exchanged worried glances, unsure of what to expect next. It's a mix of unsettling and infuriating to realize that our home was being used without our knowledge. Slowly opening the door, my eyes landed on discarded clothing, unmistakably belonging to Dad. His favorite jacket, neatly hung, was a stark reminder of the recent dinner party. The messy pile of shirt and pants only confirmed my suspicions. Mom had left just hours ago, so there was no way she could be here. It seemed Dad was bringing another woman into our home for an affair, a realization that made my stomach churn with anger. Glancing up at Michael, I saw the shock mirrored in his pale face. His gaze fixated on a necklace resting atop the washing machine, a piece of jewelry I had seen recently. Michael's words confirmed what I feared. The person in the bathroom was indeed Dad and Sophia. Pulling Michael back from the brink of confronting them, we retreated to the living room. The echoing voices seemed to mock us, but moving away from them helped Michael regain some composure. "Shouldn't we call your mom and my dad?" Michael suggested, though uncertainty clouded his tone. Bringing our parents here would only spell disaster, but ignoring the situation wasn't an option. Vulgar noises still emanated from the bathroom, indicating they weren't planning on coming out anytime soon. I contacted Mom while Michael reached out to John, Dad's friend. Less than 10 minutes later, Mom arrived with a pale face, followed by a bewildered John. The voices had ceased, replaced only by the sound of the shower. "Michael, what do you mean Sophia is here?" Mom's voice quivered with disbelief. John, unable or unwilling to accept the truth, avoided looking towards the bathroom. With Michael's signal, I began recording on my phone again. Charging into the bathroom, Michael confronted them, his anger palpable. The confrontation escalated into screams and shouts, the tension thick in the air. Wanting to avoid the sight of their nudity, I tossed a bath towel into the bathroom. Unable to contain herself any longer, Mom stormed past me and dragged Dad out of the bathroom with a roar I had never heard before. John followed suit, pulling Sophia out. In just a matter of minutes, they were sitting in the hallway, still panting heavily from the confrontation. As the silence enveloped us, Mom's thin voice broke through, demanding answers. Dad and Sophia began their explanations, revealing that it all started. Their relationship began innocently enough, captivated by Dad's demeanor, during the family gatherings organized for mine and Michael's wedding. Sophia, eager to portray herself as a virtuous woman, took charge of organizing dinner parties, gradually getting closer to Dad. At one such gathering, she finally confessed her feelings, much to Michael's disgust. But Dad was drawn to Sophia's boldness, which contrasted with Mom's more traditional demeanor. Both Dad and Sophia had their own families, making their affair complicated. Mom often worked at the same company as Dad, and John usually had a similar schedule, providing them with opportunities to meet discreetly. Surprisingly, they chose our home as their rendezvous spot, taking advantage of our absence during our short trips and weekends away. Sophia would often check on the house to confirm our absence before contacting Dad. Unbeknownst to us, they had secretly taken a spare key during one of the dinner parties and made a copy. They were meticulous in covering their tracks, bringing their own food, taking out the trash, and cleaning up after themselves. Their secret was revealed when Dad contacted Sophia after I changed plans due to Michael's business trip. Initially denying our accusations, Dad and Sophia later admitted to their affair when presented with evidence from my recordings. Divorce proceedings ensued, with Michael and I disowning them both. We used the settlement money to move into an apartment, as living in the house tainted by their affair became unbearable. Mom, having lost all affection for Dad, now lives with us. Sophia, seemingly unfazed by the divorce, moved in with Dad and they got married. However, their happiness was short-lived. Dad's business venture failed, and the company's performance plummeted. Mom, having been silently supporting Dad's business endeavors, resigned from the company after the divorce was finalized. In the end, it was Mom who had been silently covering for Dad all along, managing complaints about his business tactics and handling a significant portion of the company's accounting. As their relationship crumbled, Mom's quiet support became apparent, while Dad and Sophia faced the consequences of their actions. Dad's lack of opposition to Mom's departure led to an inadequate handover of his company, resulting in dissatisfaction among employees. Many followed Mom's lead and resigned, causing a staff shortage. Dad, believing it was a wife's duty to support him, expected Sophia to take over. However, Sophia, being a housewife with no business experience, proved to be of no help at all. The exodus of employees fueled gossip about the president's divorce, leading clients to withdraw from Dad's company, causing it to go bankrupt within 6 months. Left with significant debt and no job prospects, Dad turned to gambling for stress relief. His unemployment persisted, and his gambling addiction worsened. Sophia, struggling to make ends meet with part-time jobs, grew disillusioned with Dad's behavior. Unable to bear his verbal abuse, she fled the apartment and sought refuge with John, Michael's father, who had become somewhat reclusive after the divorce. Michael and I, visiting John, were surprised to find Sophia at his doorstep, a shadow of her former self. Despite her attempts to apologize and seek forgiveness, Michael, overwhelmed by memories of her affair, couldn't hold back his emotions. John, witnessing Michael's distress, firmly sent Sophia away, severing ties with her. Since then, there has been no contact from Dad or Sophia. Michael, initially unwell from the emotional upheaval, has since recovered, and together, we are focused on building a loving home. Mom has shown remarkable resilience, finding work and making new friends. She plans to rent an apartment for herself, and we hope she'll choose one close to us. Meanwhile, John has found solace in caring for a stray cat that wandered into his yard, turning his home into a popular hangout for felines. Despite the turmoil caused by Dad and Sophia, those of us who remain have strengthened our bonds and are moving forward. My name is Mia, a 38-year-old housewife, balancing part-time work and raising 2 children. My husband Robert, also 38, often prioritizes his mother Emily over our family plans, causing frequent adjustments to accommodate her requests. It's disheartening to see Robert prioritize his mother Emily over our family plans, even going as far as changing our child's birthday cake theme to please her. His disregard for our children's disappointment often leads to confrontations between us, while Emily seems to relish in his prioritization of her, even if it comes at the expense of our children's happiness. As our 12th wedding anniversary approached, I suggested a special celebration, hoping to spend quality time together. We booked a reservation at an upscale restaurant, but as the day arrived, Robert hadn't returned from work, and I couldn't reach him or Emily, who was supposed to watch the kids. Feeling anxious and left in the dark, I called Robert's office, only to find out he had left work early. As the time for our reservation neared, I called the restaurant to inform them of our delay, only to learn that Robert and an older woman, presumably Emily, had already been seated. Shocked and hurt by their betrayal, I confronted Robert, who nonchalantly informed me that he had decided to dine with his mother instead, without any prior communication. Feeling disgusted and betrayed, I realized the extent of Robert's preference for Emily over me. His suggestion to discard gifts from our parents for our anniversary further highlighted his disregard for our relationship. Despite giving him one last chance, his indifference only reinforced my disappointment and hurt. It's heartbreaking to see our special day overshadowed by his loyalty to his mother, leaving our children disappointed and our relationship strained. And refusal to take responsibility, I stood my ground, refusing to apologize for his mistake. The argument escalated, with both of us becoming increasingly frustrated and hurt by each other's words. Despite Robert's demands for an apology, I couldn't bring myself to apologize for following his explicit instructions. The gifts were already disposed of, and there was no way to retrieve them. I couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and disappointment towards Robert for his lack of consideration and understanding. As the argument reached a boiling point, I realized that our relationship had reached a breaking point as well. It was clear that our communication had broken down, and our differences seemed irreconcilable. I couldn't continue living in a relationship where my feelings were constantly disregarded and my concerns were dismissed. In the midst of the chaos, I made a difficult decision to prioritize my own well-being and happiness. With a heavy heart, I told Robert that I needed some time apart to reassess our relationship and figure out what was best for both of us. Despite his protests and pleas for reconciliation, I knew that I needed space to reflect on our relationship and determine whether it was salvageable. It was a painful realization, but I knew that I couldn't continue living in a toxic and unfulfilling relationship. As Robert stormed out of the house, leaving me alone with my thoughts, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief mingled with sadness. It was the end of an era, but perhaps also the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one where I could prioritize my own happiness and well-being above all else. It sounds like you've been through a lot, but it's wonderful to hear that you've found a supportive community and a new job opportunity. Leaving a toxic relationship takes courage, and it's clear that you're prioritizing your own well-being and that of your children. Building a happy and healthy life for yourself and your family is truly commendable. If there's anything you need support with as you continue on this journey, don't hesitate to reach out.